Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I paint custom miniatures from Hero Forge. This time I've got a human barbarian called Mercer Kelley. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and comment in the box below. Subscribe and click the bell icon for notifications of new videos. Okay, so I've started base coating the miniature. I'm using paints from the basic paint set, the Army Painter basic paint set. Starting with Barbarian flesh, and I've just put a little squeeze in my paint box, my palette, which is just a ready mills tub, but it's got little compartments so I can have some water in here and my paints in here where I can mix. So I put a little bit of water with it to make sure it's nice and thin and it will flow onto the miniature and it won't obscure any of the details. So as I said, most of the paints are going to be from this basic paint set, but I am going to use uniform grey just to paint any grey areas that I need to do. I'm going to be rough with this first coat because I know I'm going to go back in and correct later on, so I'd rather sort of make sure that I've got paint in all the little crevices which are hard to paint later on than worrying too much about getting it onto the armour, because I know I'll paint over that later on. So what I'll do is I'll base coat the rest of the miniature, and then I'll be back and the next stage will be tidying it up. Also just using a standard brush. Okay guys, so I've finished base coating the miniature. What I'm going to do now is just go back in with all of the base coat colours and correct. I've already put a squeeze of Barbarian flesh in my palette, so I'm just going to make sure that that's watered down, and then wherever I've made mistakes or overrun, or if the paint's looking a little bit thin in areas, I'm just going to paint over those areas, sharpen up the lines with all of the base coats. So I will be back when all of that is done. Okay, so I finished tidying up the miniature, and what I'm going to do now is add a wash. So I'm going to use Army Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone. This is quite runny, so I won't need to add any water to it. I'm just going to put a little squeeze in my palette, and then just using a standard brush, I'm going to run this over all of the areas except the black areas. There's no need to really put it over there, and what that will do is it will run into all of the recesses and create shadow. So I'm going to do that. If you find that it's going on too thick in places, you can just take some off with a brush or even with a bit of tissue, but I'm just going to do the rest of this and then I'll be back after that. Okay, so now I've applied the wash to the miniature. I'm going to go back in now and use the base coat colours again, just to highlight raised areas. So I'm going to use a small detail brush for this and just go over those areas. So if I'm looking at the face, it'll be the nose, the cheeks, forehead, just to bring them out away from the shadow that we've just put in. But also trying to leave some of that shadow there. Okay, so I will be back when I've done that to all the other base coat colours. Okay guys, so I've finished highlighting Mercer. What I'm going to do now is just add some tints. So to do that, I'm going to use the base colours again. I'm going to mix in a little bit of matte white with those base colours, just to make them a little bit lighter. I'm going to add those to the really highest points. So for the face, it would be the tip of the nose, tip of the cheeks, the fingers. I'd be putting some highlights, or sorry, tints on the knuckles, all of those sort of areas. So I've mixed in a little bit of water. I'm going to use a fine detail brush for this, and then when I'm happy with the colour, I'm going to go ahead and add those to those areas. So tip of the nose, I might just do the tip of the chin because that's a little bit higher, cheeks, maybe the just the highest points on the ears, and the knuckles. Okay, so I'm going to do that to the rest of the miniature, and then I'll be back when all the tints have been put on. Okay, so now I've tinted the miniature, I'm going to use a method called dry brushing to do the metal areas, the battle axe and the spear tips, the top of the drinking horn, and there's like a belt buckle that I'm going to do as well. So I'm going to use a dry brush, but I'm also going to use my standard brush for the smaller areas. So I'm going to put a squeeze of Army Painter Plate Mail Metal into my palette, and I'm going to not add any water. I'm just going to put my dry brush straight in. I'm going to take off some of the paint. I really just want to just about see it on the tissue paper here. Then I'm going to drag that across where I want to apply the metal finish. And what it will do is it will hit all of the raised areas. It's better to go lighter with this and apply layers than have too much on your brush. So you can see here, just dry brushing across the blade of the axe, it's picking up on all of the raised areas and it's leaving the darker areas recessed. So I'm going to do that to all of the metal areas, and I'll be back after that. Okay, so I've dry brushed the metal areas. Next stage is to do some detailed areas. So first of all, I'm going to use matte black to paint the eyes, the mouth, because she's got like a bit of a snarl on. Also lots of piercings on the eyebrows and a nose ring, so I'm going to paint those black as well. Once I've done that, I'll paint over the eyes with the matte white, but leave a little black outline, and then I'll put a little black dot for the pupil of the eye. The piercings will be painted over with plate mail metal, but again I'll leave a little bit of black so there's an outline, and I'll also paint the base around the edge in leather brown. I'm also going to add some war paint to the face, so there'll be some little leather brown war paint on the face as well. I'll be back when that's done. Okay, so I finished detailing the miniature, and it's now time to spray. So I'll come out into the garage so it's nicely ventilated. I'm going to be using Army Painter Anti-Shine matte varnish, and I'm just going to apply some coats. I've been shaking the can for a minute and following all the instructions on the back. So I'm just going to put on some really light coats, come quite a long way back, so that I don't put too much varnish on and obscure all the detail. I've also got the miniature on a block, so I can turn it easily without touching it. And I'm just going to turn that so that I can get all of the angles. What this will do is it'll just take a bit of shine off the miniature where the wash has been on, and it'll also give it a little protective coat, just so if it falls off the tabletop it won't damage it too much. And there we have it, the finished miniature.